My name is Melissa Lanza, and I am the committee chair for the Early Career Professionals here at the San Diego Psychological Association. So welcome everyone to our webinar this evening. We are excited to have over 100 people who are scheduled to attend tonight, so that is fantastic. Because of that, we are going to have everybody muted and everybody's video is off except for Alyssa, our presenter here. So instead of doing a chat feature, we're going to encourage everybody to use the question and answers, the Q&A on the bottom. At the end of our presentation, we will answer as many questions as we can. So just use that feature, and then throughout the presentation, I'm going to be kind of grouping those together. This presentation will be recorded and will be available for review. So if you miss anything, we'll have a chance to go back to it. And Tammy from the office will also be sending out the PowerPoint presentation at the end. So don't rapidly take notes. We'll get that information out to you guys. With any presentation, including this one, please keep in mind, go back with your own respective licenses to your own ethics codes, your rules and regs, to make sure that whatever suggestions are provided fall in line with what we're allowed to do. All right. So without further ado, let me introduce Alyssa. And Alyssa, please take it away and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to walk you through, different marketing tools and platforms that you can use at your disposal, give you some tips on those, and then eventually give you some contact information for some people who might be able to help. But my goal here is to really get everyone kind of well-versed in some of these marketing tactics and these tools that can be utilized, especially right now in the time that we're living in. We all know how important it is with telehealth. I want to share my screen so I can share this presentation with all of you. So we have labeled today Marketing for the Modern Psychologist. So what that means is really using the tools at your disposal online in order to make sure that you're showing up in places where people are searching for doctors and therapists and to become a potential patient. So in order to do that, I'm going to share my skill set, what I've focused on in recent years. So I'll give you a little background on me. I am a paid media manager at AIG Direct, so focusing on finance right now. However, I studied marketing and management at the University of South Carolina and specialized in digital marketing with a heavy focus on paid search. So I've done quite a bit of work on paid search across a few industries. The main focus of mine has been on healthcare, finance, and law industries. So that's getting clients such as yourselves, trying to get clients to your site. So I've taken the skills and things that I've learned over the past 8 years or so in digital marketing and put it together today in a presentation to share with everyone. Again, like Melissa said, please make sure anything that I've said, you just run it by any code of ethics or anything going on. I know a lot of these go on a state-by-state basis. So please make sure to look into that. So here are a couple of the things that we'll be covering, and we're going to go into some detail there, as well as at the end, we will have a Q&A section. So make sure to keep any thoughts that you might have handy, just so at the end, if you want to ask those questions, please definitely do so. So as I said before, now more than ever, telehealth is so important. We're losing that face-to-face interaction on a day-to-day basis. So someone who might have been a referral previously might not get that day-to-day interaction. So it's really important to have an online presence. I've been seeing this myself just in the digital marketing industry, that a lot of people have been really starting to scramble and figure out how they have an online presence. So just always try to be ahead of it. All of these tools can take time and patience. So remember to be patient with them as it's outside of the scope of what you typically do. And you want your main focus, of course, to be on your clients. So we'll go through a couple ways to help you do these tools and on these platforms and not spend too much time on something that's not working right. So the first thing I want to talk about today is website creation. It's so important for people to know who you are. So this and having a website shows clients you're an official business and not some random person jumping on a Zoom call. Having a website makes you legitimate in their eyes. So for example, if someone were searching for you and your website didn't come up right away, they might think you're not as established as some other therapists that are out there. So it's really important, and I really want to stress how important website creation is, especially as we're adding a lot of these marketing tools on top of this. We're going to want to drive a lot of traffic here. So this is really the core of where we want to start, is with that website creation. So going into why you need a website, like I said earlier, it shows that you're an established business, and it shows professionalism. It shows that you've done your research, you know what you're doing, shows all of the things that you have worked on and specialized in. You want to make sure that people can find you very easily. Like I said, if a website doesn't come up, they're going to be not as keen on working with you if they don't feel like it's a legitimate business. Another thing that we want to focus on is answering questions. So what I mean by that is a few things. One can be answering questions about costs and billing, location, contact information, but we can also kind of talk about too some more broad questions, maybe how specific types of treatment work. So I have an example here of one website that does a great job of answering kind of the anxiety therapy and what you can potentially do. So here's a video, which is a great tool, and I will repeat this throughout today, is video is a great tool because people feel a connection to it as opposed to always just reading an article. Again, this kind of lays out treatment of anxiety. Someone might think, okay, I think I have anxiety, but what does the treatment look like? So this is kind of going through the treatment, what you'll need, the different techniques used. So again, just a great example of these bigger questions that might require a little bit more effort on your end to, show people that you know and you have the answers for them. Again, specialization, I will repeat this a lot today. You want to focus on what you're good at, because you want to get clients who are going to come back and know that it is a good match. And you wouldn't want to bring people to your site if then they're going to contact you and say, this isn't such a great fit. So please make sure to include specializations. This can be in a separate page on the website where you go through that, as well as adding those specializations in a more general, informational introduction to who you are. So make sure to include those specializations in multiple aspects of the website. So the things that I just talked about are kind of focused on the client and what they're looking for, but there's also a technical aspect to the website creation and what that can do for you. So with all these marketing tools, where are we going to send traffic to? We really want to link them back to the website so that they know who they're looking at, where to contact, all of those great information points. In addition to that, with sending traffic to, we want to make sure that we're coming up in search results. And I'm going to go through the details of SEO and paid search, how to do those. But all of these things are going to lead back to those search results and making sure that your website is appearing when people search for a provider. And finally, on the technical side of things, we want to track our marketing efforts. That's what's great about the internet. Some people think it's creepy, but as a digital marketing specialist, I love that we can track everything that we're doing. So whether that's looking at how much money you're spending on certain websites or channels that are driving traffic back to your website, you also want to think about the time that you're spending on these things and what the output is and what the input is, what you're getting out of there. So how many clients are coming through there? How many visits are you getting? This is a great way to really monetize in essence of what you're doing in terms of marketing. So a few tips for website design. So we want to have a clear call to action. And what this means is make sure that a user, once they land on your website, is going to know what to do once they get there. So for example, I love this site here. It's very simple. There's a clear call to action in the middle of that page, which is get your free consultation. As well as up on the right, you can see the different pages within the website. So we have what we offer, who we help, about, blog, and then contact us. So again, there's that call to action piece that is telling someone the main goal of this website is to get you to contact or reach out. And that's really what you want to drive home. If someone got to the website and didn't see any kind of clear call to action, they might eventually just leave not knowing what they need to do next. So on top of that, you want to make it informative and easy to navigate. So keep it simple. When you're going through this, and I know website design is not everyone's forte, it's not mine either, but I've been able to pick up a lot of these skills and transfer them over, because if you just keep it simple, it's really straightforward and people can know what they're looking for. So this can be done through making clear sections, like on this example, where there are clear headers of what you want to look at. So they show exactly how to navigate the site in a very clear and simple way. Another thing is that personal connection. I will say this again repeatedly, add your photo, especially when you're working as an individual who is running their own business. Someone's going to want to see who they're contacting when it comes to making the choice for a therapist or a psychologist. They want to be able to trust you, especially now when we don't get to meet face to face. They want to feel confident that they're going to connect with you. So adding photos and adding even videos will add to that personal connection that will eventually lead to somebody contacting you for an appointment. In addition to contacting you via a phone call, I would highly recommend adding a form fill. Something to keep in mind here is to, again, keep it really simple. If you ask too many questions during this form fill, people are going to drop off and not want to fill it out. People are going to go and start filling it out and realize that you want their age, gender, other information that they just don't feel like providing at that moment. So if you keep it simple and keep this a very short contact form, more people are going to be willing to fill that out. Specialties, again, I will say this, make sure you make it clear what you specialize in and add that in multiple places. So again, that's that specialization section, as well as in the intro and a summary about yourself. And finally, I have mobile friendly. So people expect nowadays when they go on their phones that the website is going to be mobile friendly. This is actually really simple and easy to accomplish, especially with some of the tools I'll show you on the next slide, is that a lot of these tools will automatically make your website easy to use on a mobile device. You'd be surprised at how many people are searching for psychologists on a mobile device. A lot of people take action when they're in a moment where they really want to connect with somebody. So that might even lead to a bigger increase in someone wanting to contact someone right in that moment. And someone needing to zoom in to a website on their phone and not navigate it properly are going to leave your website immediately. So it's really important to make sure that your website is easy to navigate both on the mobile device and on a desktop. So I have a list here of tools that you can use to create websites. This list ranges in very simple, basic design sites that will kind of allow you to use just very basic tools to create it. And there are also tools on this list that will provide you with more technical aspects to a website. So that might include more coding on the back end, which if you have that skill set, I recommend. If not, you can also find a good medium where you have these tools for creating websites as well as a website designer, and you can get a consultant for a very reasonable price to create the initial website, and have them teach you how to make any adjustments you need moving forward. So some of these tools work really well with a consultant because they can have them do more of the technical back-end things, but also allow you to make changes ongoing, which is great. So as I said, there is an upfront cost that really ranges in what you're looking for. As far as, you know, the industry of therapy and psychologists, you probably wouldn't need too much going into the website. So that can be fairly inexpensive. I'll throw out there a few $100s for a website creation. You'll also have to buy the domain and pay ongoing monthly fees for hosting. And a lot of these tools do provide that, and will range sometimes between $12 and $14 for monthly costs. But again, that's going to vary depending on what it is you're looking to do. So when we talk about websites, one of the main reasons to have a website is to come up when someone searches you. And that's when we get into SEO. So SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. So that's a fancy term for making your website readable so that Google will say, okay, this matches what this user is searching for. So Google needs to, the fancy word, crawl your website to basically pull all the content and information that's on the website. And what it's doing is trying to give it a score that's relevant to what someone is looking for. So if someone is looking for a therapist in San Diego that specializes in depression, that would be something that would show up if you were optimizing your account and your campaigns for SEO. 97% of people search a psychologist before deciding. So whether or not that's doing research from the beginning and not having anyone in mind, and also goes to somebody who has a specific name in mind who wants to look for that person. So this is why it's really important to make sure you're optimizing both for your page as well as specifics and specializations that you focus on. So here I have an example of the search engine results page. So, you know, when you go on Google and type something, there is this advertisement that typically comes up on the top of the website or top of the search results page, as well as on the bottom of the page. And then everything in between that is an organic listing. So Google is ranking these pages based on relevancy, based on traffic scores. There are a lot of things that go into how Google will rank your page. You know, this can be very difficult to achieve. I'm not going to lie. SEO is something that takes a lot of time. This is probably the most time-consuming piece that we're going to go over today. People are going to want to search for example, this is dental therapy. So we want to make sure that that keyword is showing up in the top of our searches. So I'm going to go through a couple different options of who you can use to help you optimize your website so that you show up in these search engine results. But again, these changes don't happen overnight. It takes time for Google to increase basically your ranking for these pages, depending on the content that you're writing, the technical aspects that come on kind of on the back end that we'll need some help with. So one easy thing that I want to point out, or I'm sorry, let me go back a little bit. I want to talk through the different options for SEO because it is somewhat of a difficult and time-consuming task to do for marketing. So the first option, of course, is to do it yourself, What's great about this is, there's no cost, which is great. It takes time, but you can do it all on your own, do that research. The cons, it's research intensive, again, takes a lot of time. So I kind of put these in both because you can do it really quickly and make some quick changes, especially if you're the one who owns your website and you can go on and make changes. But the cons is that it requires time. So all the changes that you're making, you might not see results on for another month or two, and it can even take longer than that. For tips here, do as much research as you can. There are a lot of tools out there online for building SEO. Again, you're just going to have to really spend time going through that. There are free webinar tools, lots of blog posts about this. So definitely do some research before going ahead and deciding which of these routes you want to go on. One more thing to remember as you're going through SEO is to utilize your website development. So if you do have a website developer who's going to take the time to put that together, they should also be thinking about SEO and what types of keywords to add to the website and what types of content to use. So make sure during that initial process that you're thinking about these things and that you are making your consultant aware that you want to optimize for SEO. A consultant is probably the best route for most people. The consultation is great because it's one-on-one. You can spend time explaining what your needs are and what you're looking for. The cons with this is it can be a little bit pricey, and there's higher risk. You're not guaranteed that if you work with a consultant that you're going to have a 20% increase on traffic in the next month. So a tip for that would be to try to set goals and let your consultant know exactly what it is you're trying to achieve. So for example, if it's getting more people to the homepage, if it's increasing people to the blog, if you want to keep track of how many people are sending in a form fill for you, please make sure to do that, as some SEO specialists will really focus on traffic and not always exactly what the main goal of the website is. With that, also set a checkpoint so that you can gauge the progress of everything that you've been working on with them. The last one is an agency. These are very, very expensive. However, you can find some really great agencies that are industry pros. So they are well-versed in psychology and know and have had clients before who do this. So there can be a lot of really great benefits from them. But if you're an individual promoting your individual business, this is probably not the best way to go. But if you do decide that this is the route you want to take, I would definitely recommend determining an ROI. So making sure that if you're spending $5,000 on SEO, you want to make sure you're getting that back in return, as well as trying to see which other agencies are out there. Interview a few before deciding on it, just so you're well aware of what's out there and what you can do. So I know I just mentioned a lot of more technical, harder to implement tools for SEO. There are some easy things we can do immediately. Google My Business is a great tool. It's so easy to set up. It takes about 15 minutes. Like I said, if someone was given your name as a referral, then searched you and saw your business listed here, they would trust you as a business because you are recognized by Google as a business. Here they can see the information they need right away. They can see their location, which is important. I know right now we're in this weird time where a lot of it is done through telecommunication. However, people do still want to know that you are local to them. So this will not only increase your exposure here, but people can see that you're local. In addition, there are also business reviews on here. I know that you can't solicit reviews, but people might come in and add their own. And right now that might act as for somebody as a referral if they do see that there are such great reviews for your business. Here is an example of Zenful Therapy. So one thing I really want to point out is I did this search for Zenful Therapy, so it came up right away. However, this big section on the right is a huge piece of real estate, essentially. So we want to take up as much space as we possibly can on that search results page. So that's why having Google My Business just gives you a more robust local listing than not having it and only having your website. So here you can really get people to see the connection between both, see that you have your website, that you are Google, that you are viewed upon as Google as a legitimate business, which has a location, your hours, contact information, which is great. Here you can see, you can even look at where it's listed on Google Maps, and adding a photo here always helps. The other great thing about Google My Business is that Google sends you insights into how you're performing. So you can see how many people have seen and viewed your website in the last week. So you can also look and monitor not only the campaigns that you might be running or the blog content you're posting, but also see who's just searching and how many times you're coming up for them in this Google results page. So in addition to standard SEO, we can also look at content marketing. So this can be used in a couple ways. First, we can really look at blogs. So here I pulled an article on anxiety and stress management. This came up when I was doing searches, and it pulled my location, seeing that this was a local doctor. So this is a great thing to utilize. I want to emphasize that creating content and blog posts should really focus on your specialties, and this is where you can show your knowledge. So not only with this can you show up on more websites and share your blogs, but people will have a reason to stay on your site for more time. So if someone's searching and they find your website and then they're looking for contact information, they also might be triggered to pull up some of your blogs and look at some more content. And anything that keeps you engaged on a website longer is going to drive up Google's ranking of where you show up, and will also just make a user feel more like there are things to explore there. And they might be more inclined to then fill out a form if they read something that they find truly engaging and then they feel connects to them. Also here, what's great is video. So video is a great tool to add to your website. A lot of people love reading blogs, but a lot of people are lazy and they like watching videos. So I know a lot of people feel uncomfortable sometimes posting videos. Don't feel uncomfortable with that. People really want to get to know you before they make that decision that they're going to do, an appointment with you. So being able to provide that sense of personal connection with them is going to be really, really powerful. Don't worry here either about professional videography. You don't need to be an influencer with your whole video setup. Your phone camera is good enough. Viewers don't expect a professional psychologist to have a professional video setup. They're really looking to engage with you and feel that personal connection. That's really going to make them feel confident in reaching out for an appointment. So again, please focus on your specialties here. That's really a place for you to shine, and make sure that you are bringing in the right people that are going to be a good fit for you as a client. So the next thing I want to touch on is paid search. This is a big focus of mine currently and has always been. What's great about paid search is it's instantaneous. So as I was talking about SEO and how it can take some time to really build up your rankings and making sure that you're showing up on search results, you can quickly surpass that for that paid search result. So here I have, on the right, you'll see I did a Google search for best therapist for anxiety in San Diego. And the first ad that I got was this therapy and stress and anxiety. So this is a great ad here because you'll see there is a direct call to action here. So start an appointment, find a local counselor. All of these things are, again, telling me what to do once I get to that website, and are also providing other links that will get me directly to that page that's going to help me find a counselor and make an appointment. So Google works with paid search on a pay-per-click model. So this means you don't pay for anything until someone actually clicks on that advertisement. So this advertisement on the right might show up 20 times in a day, but if they only got one click, they're only going to pay for that one click. These clicks vary in how expensive they can be. So, when I talk about any of these search methods, so SEO or paid search, keep in mind that someone searching for find a therapist is going to be a very expensive search to bid on. And it's also going to be very difficult to come up in any kind of SEO search. You really want to find areas where you can focus on. So that's why I keep really writing home that specialization, that personalization, making sure that it shows that you are local to where you live and that you're really focused on clients in your location, and that you want to provide them with services. So going back to Google and how this works on this pay-per-click model. So essentially, I would look at keywords, they're called, that I want to bid on. So those keywords are just anything that someone is searching in that search box. So best therapist for anxiety could be those keywords that I want to bid on. And I would decide I'm willing to pay $4 for someone who will click on this advertisement. So it's great because you have a lot of control in terms of what you're doing. You can decide how much you want to pay for that click, and you can also decide how much you want to pay each day for these marketing platforms. So you can also look at a monthly budget. And what I focus on in my career is very, very localized companies. So this is a great tool for local companies who can then target just in San Diego. So you're not just paying for clicks that happen nationally. You can really drill down into very, very specific locations. You can even get as targeted as zip code and then maybe a 5-mile radius around that zip code. So it does allow a lot of levers and pulleys that you can do to make sure that you're not paying for things that are outside of who you want to target in terms of advertising. I want to now go into some of the options for paid search. So this is the same as SEO laid out, except it's a little bit different. So DIY, there is no cost to initially set it up. You're not paying Google $30 a month in order to do your ads. You are literally only paying for those clicks. So you have a lot of control in that cost. One of the cons there is that you are paying for clicks. So if you're paying for a lot of visitors to the website who don't eventually then contact you or fill out a form, you're just paying for a lot of traffic essentially to your site. So you want to make sure that you're looking at the actions that people take once they do come to the site. And I'll go through that towards the end when we talk about measurement. But you can directly track where someone comes from and then the action that they do take on your site. So you could then decide, okay, paid search is actually giving me a cost of $20 for a form fill. And that might be worth it if you figure out that that is going to give you a return on your investment. What I would recommend if you do this is to keep tabs on this daily. That's what stuff is. It's very time consuming and it's a continuous strategy that you have to keep on top of. It's not a set it and forget it. SEO provides you with some more long-term strategies where you can build a blog and hope that that, leads a lot of people back to your site. With paid search, you really need to be in this account on a regular basis, making sure you're not spending too much, spending too little, and you have to have a good knowledge base of paid search in order to launch this yourself. Again, similar with SEO, what's great about a consultant is you get that one-on-one interaction. A lot of consultants focus on certain industries as well as local searches. Again, like I said before, I've done a lot of work with local companies, and we've started with very, very low budgets, meaning $100 over 2 weeks to look at what we're seeing come in. So you can do that here, which is great. The agencies, again, it's going to be very expensive to hire an advertising agency for paid search. They typically require more upfront costs as well as ongoing costs, and will even take a percentage of what you're actually spending on those paid search ads. What I would recommend doing just to start, again, I want to leave everyone with some quick things that they can do right now. And what you can do is go and create a Google Ads account. It is free to set up. You will typically have to put in your credit card information. However, nothing will be charged unless you decide you want to start spending on advertisements. But what you can use this tool for without spending is Google Ads Keyword Planner. So if you set up an account, you would go into this keyword planner and it gives you two options here. So the first is to discover new keywords. So what you can do is type in different things you think people might be searching, and it will give you additional keywords that people might search that are related to those things. So I want to talk about specifically how this can help other tools. So not just looking at paid search, but looking at directories, blog content, website development. What are these keywords that you want to use on your website that people are searching for? It really gives you a starting point to understand within your specialties how people word most of these things. Sometimes you'll find that you might think of a certain search term that is very relevant to your business, but there might be a more layman's terms to it that an average person wouldn't know that professional word that you usually use. So someone would then say, oh, okay, in these discover new keywords, I'm seeing that there are these other searches coming through that are the same meaning basically. So maybe I want to focus some of my specialties on more of those terms as opposed to the more professional wording of that. And that's just an example of it. The other piece here is this keyword search volume and forecast. This is a great tool because you can see what people are searching and how much they're searching it. So I want to jump to the next slide here where I used my account to look at therapists in San Diego. So this is the initial search that I did. And you can also drill down by location, search networks, but you can look at here, keywords by relevance. So this offers you additional keywords that you might want to look at and also shows you the average monthly searches that people are doing. So you can see that marriage counseling in San Diego is searched a lot. However, couples therapy in San Diego isn't searched as often. So that might be a trigger for you to say, okay, maybe I should really focus on marriage counseling as a section on my site if that's something that I focus on, and not so much on couples therapy. These are just examples of ways you can use this tool. Again, I'll mention this again in directories, but this is a great way to look at what you are targeting in the directories and if there's any kind of customizations you can add to those things. So I'll jump over to that right now. I know you are all very familiar with a lot of these directories. It's very easy advertising. So I know I went and rambled on a lot about SEO and paid search and those great tools. However, these are so simple to use and you can do it yourself. So it doesn't make sense to not be on them. They're fairly cheap. So, you know, some of them are $30 a month. You have direct access then to more SEO results. So when I was talking earlier about some of the harder to come up for search terms like therapists near me, that is a very in-demand keyword that more of these directories are showing up for. And it would cost you a lot of money to try to show up for that for a paid search. And it would take a lot of SEO effort to come up on that first page of results for SEO. So these directories almost always come up in the first page results for a lot of those big volume, high volume searches done for more general terms. So this is a way that someone would then click onto these directories, do a search within them, and find you. Also with directories, when you link your website on them, Google is then reading that as a site that is alive on other websites. So Google is going to then add more value and more weight to your website and provide you with more results for SEO. So always when you're doing directories, make sure that you have your website linked to it. So a couple tips for directories, and I've talked a little bit about this. Focus on your specialties. So I know a lot of the time these directories will provide you a list of standard things that you can click on to say that those are your specialties. There's also usually an area that allows you to put in some custom specialties. So I encourage you to try and add different terms for those. And that might be a great place to use the keyword planner to try to figure out where you might be able to add some searches and keywords that aren't already listed in that subset of specialties. Again, people aren't always looking at that set list of specialties. They're going to type in their own words that they want to use. So that's where you can use some of that keyword research to then build it in there. As far as description, make sure you're adding a robust description that really gives people insight into what you do. I would refrain from just copying and pasting your summary or homepage and that content, because when Google sees that content is duplicated on your web page as well as other web pages, it might not deem that as valuable as a once web page that has just one summary that is different than what lives on other websites. That's just a tip that I would use. You can definitely try to use what you already have and change it up a little bit, but I recommend you do so and test out different things. So always keep track of what you're seeing. I know a lot of these sites too offer some background on how many visits you're getting a month, how many contacts you've gotten per month. So I would highly recommend keeping track. If you made some changes and you added some additional specialties or you change your description, and then that month you start to see more contacts coming through, say, oh, okay, I think I'm onto something here. Or if the opposite happens, right, and you're starting to see a decrease in traffic, then you'd want to test something again. So always make sure that you're testing and changing things to really see what's going to work for you and your business. And finally, what I'll say here is to add a photo. Always have a photo. This is, again, goes back to that personalization piece, and people want to contact someone who they feel like they already know. You know, it's easier to call someone on the phone if they feel like they know who you are, and especially with a video. You know, people might be more willing to call someone they feel like they've already kind of connected with via video than somebody that they've never even heard speak in their lives. So I would highly recommend doing that. Again, it might feel awkward, but I really encourage it. I think a lot of people want to connect with someone before they make that initial contact. The other thing to mention here is that these are running at low cost. So if you had one of these websites where you paid $30 a month and you got one client from that website in the year, that could potentially pay off that entire subscription for the year. So make sure you're keeping that in mind as you're testing different directories, is to say, okay, if I did get a contact and a client from this directory, maybe I want to focus on doing some changes here to try to make it better. Or if I spent 6 months on one directory and haven't seen much come through, that's when you want to cut your losses and say, okay, this isn't working for me. Let me focus my time and my money on what's actually working. So another thing that isn't a directory, but it is in the sense, is Yelp. I want to caveat this with, I know Yelp's not everyone's favorite thing. However, it's going to also help with reviews, additional SEO results. Yelp almost always shows up in searches. No matter what kind of business it is, Yelp is usually on those top pages. So again, this is going to drive people to Yelp, which are then going to drive people to your page. And this is where you want to make sure you're linking your website here, because then again, you're going to get more traffic, and Google is going to recognize that as a website that's starting to gain a lot of traction and that people are going to, and it's going to increase the value that Google deems your website as. Another thing here is that sometimes people just go right to Yelp. A lot of people have Yelp downloaded on their phones, or they have it saved in their browser. So some people skip search engines altogether and just go directly to Yelp, as with a directory. However, Yelp is usually more common than people know that Yelp exists. So that might be somewhere somebody checks to see how your business is rated and what it's doing there. So let's talk a little bit about social media. I know social media has its perks and its downfalls. I know we've all seen that in recent years. So I'll go through some ways to kind of get around some of the downfalls of it. Just make sure you're socially aware. There's a way to do social right, and there's a way not to do it. Mainly what I'm talking about here is with organic social, so not paying for any kind of advertisements on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. You can definitely test that out, but I think a starting point is to create a business page. So never use your personal profile connected with your business. You want your business page to really stand out as a legitimized business where people can trust it. And want to contact that. So the other thing too here is it's a great place to share all that great content we talked about building. This is where you really want to engage with people. So you want to increase the engagement on your website, but also the engagement to your social media platforms. Asking someone to comment or share, keeping that space really open and providing people an outlet a little bit is a great thing to do. not only do you want to ask people to get engaged with your content, but try to engage in other people's content. The more that you like other posts or share other pages, that's going to come back to you and eventually build your traffic and build your likes and your engagement. There might also be other businesses that will share your information if they see that you've shared theirs. So it's a very easy tool. Everyone's used social for their own personal reasons. So, you know, it's easy to take on this from a business standpoint. Just always try to remember that what you're doing here is for your business, and you should take all the personal element out of it. That might connect it back to your personal page, your personal friends, your clients. You don't want that to be something that people could see or engage in. And finally, you know, always include the contact information. That's a given, no matter what we're doing here. Link to the website so people can get there. Measurement. So this is so important to me. I can't stress it enough. I know that it's not going to be the easiest thing to implement. However, if you do decide that you're going to pay for advertisements, you need to make sure that you are tracking the performance of these, and that if you're paying for them, they are bringing people to your site that are eventually going to become your clients. So one thing that's great about Google Analytics is it's free. You can set it up on your website for free and check into it whenever you want. So I have an example here of a dashboard. So you can see how many people are on the site right now, how many new visitors you have versus people that are returning. You can look at locations as well. And then here on the right, we can see this traffic source. So here's where I'll refer to that organic piece. And then there's some social listed here. So you can see where people are coming from. This is going to be key to figuring out where you're spending your money and your time efficiently. So you can track everything that comes through to here and see how many visitors you're getting from Facebook, how many visitors you're getting from SEO, how many visitors you're getting from any of the directories that you link to. You won't be able to see anything that doesn't happen on your website. So Google Analytics is solely looking at all of the activity that happens on your website. And here's where you would add not just information on someone who's coming to your website and looking at a blog, but also looking at if somebody is filling out that form. So that action is going to be tracked within Google Analytics when you set it up. I would highly recommend setting it up with doing a lot of research on it, or reaching out to a professional who can set it up for you. You want to make sure that you are judging your time and your money based on true data, and that what you're seeing coming through is accurate, so that you can make sure that you're focusing everything on what works best for you. In addition to looking at the different channels that are bringing in traffic, you can also look at demographics in here. So you can see what the traffic looks like to your website. You can see what the ages are of people, the sex of them, where they're located. A lot of this information lives in Google Analytics. Again, one of those creepy things. You can't see individual information. That's not what this is for. It is just kind of giving you an overview of what the demographic breakdown looks like from your website. And so you can even view that on a channel basis, where you could say, okay, my target audience is someone over the age of 30 who's seeking marriage counseling. And then if you start to see that your Facebook traffic is driving a lot of people between the ages of 18 and 26, that might not be the best place to spend your time. So being able to kind of cut and look at the data in a lot of different ways is going to help you determine what you should focus on. So I know that's kind of a lot of information there. But here are kind of some examples. So you can look at what you're spending. So if you were spending on paid search, and you had $150 that came through as a lead, so you spent $150 on a lead, whereas SEO, all the work that you've done, has actually been more expensive. So you spent $200 on that lead. That's where you'd want to say, let me shift what I'm spending my money on, and where I'm advertising, and maybe focus more on that paid search side of things. In addition to that, because I know it's not always going to be monetary, I wanted to include in here hours. So you are all very, very busy. Obviously, you have very full schedules. You have your clients that already exist, or you're looking to spend time on creating more. You really want to make sure you're not wasting time someplace that's not going to work for you. So if you did 3 hours in a blog post on paid social, or social, or did 10 hours of SEO research and work, and that only listed one lead, whereas the other one had one lead at 3 hours, that might be another way to kind of gauge it. Again, you can't keep track of how long you're spending on each of these things in Google Analytics, but you can get that lead information that's going to tell you how important that time that you spent on those channels were for you, and what you should do moving forward. So I want to stop here. There's a lot that I went over. I really wanted to kind of give you an overall look at advertising online, website development, and the tools that are at your disposal, as well as some quick things you could do in order to make some quick changes. So that includes that Google My Business. I highly recommend you do that immediately. Creating profiles for your businesses on Directories or social advertising, please do that. But I wanted to provide some contact information for some people I've worked with in the past who specialize in these things. So the first I have is an SEO specialist. The next really focuses on website design. And then the next two, obviously one is me, but Rebecca focuses on paid search, whereas I focus on paid search and social. So please feel free to reach out to any of these contacts if you have any questions or are looking to work with any of these people. So I want to stop there. I have some references in here of where I got some of the information on there, but I want to stop and allow for some Q&A that we have.
All right, thank you so much, Alyssa. I don't know if you can see the Q&A, so I'm just going to read them, unless you can tell me that you can see them.
I can see them.
All right.
So I will go
kind
through
of
them.
Similar.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one we have is, thanks so much for the presentation. You are welcome. Can you give me more of the sense of time it takes for DIY SEO? Again, this SEO is a lot to learn. There are two things involved in SEO. So one is technical SEO. So that entails making sure the website code includes the keywords that you need. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but for example, each page has a header text. And you want to make sure that there's header text in each of your pages and that it matches the content on the site, and then it's also matching what you're seeing people search. So that basically, technical SEO is looking at the skeleton, I'll say, of your website and making sure that it's crawlable for Google and that it's relevant for what you do and who you're looking to reach out to. There is the other side of SEO, which is more ongoing, I would say, and that's the content piece. So SEO, I would recommend, if you're doing it yourself, to start to look at some content through that keyword planner. So look at some articles that you've seen that have received a lot of engagement or a lot of shares, and maybe plug that into the keyword planner and see what else shows up. So it can help you get a sense of what people are looking for. So I mentioned earlier about questions. You want to make sure you're answering a question. So there are a lot of frequently asked questions on Google search results. So if you do that research, you can really kind of drill down onto what is being searched for and what you can do. It's hard for me to give you a sense of exact time. Technical SEO can take anywhere from 5 hours if you want to do the minimum to 25. The content creation and the research behind the content creation is going to be much more time consuming because you are the content creator. So unless you have someone writing stuff for you, you're going to have to write your own pieces. That should be easy if you were focusing on your specializations. And then the harder part would be to determine which types of articles you want to write, and that would be that keyword research. So that keyword research could take 5 hours, and the content creation itself and writing that could take a lot more. And then you just want to make sure you have a website where you can easily upload and add content whenever you want. If that is going to be your strategy, you don't want to be spending a lot of time or money trying to feed that back to a consultant to then upload it. So that's another tip too, I would say, in the development process with your website, is try to find that good in between of, hey, you're a consultant, please help me create the website, but how do I manage this moving forward? Or use one of the tools where you don't need a consultant and you can really do it on your own. If you do that, I would recommend a lot of those tools also provide tips on SEO. So any kind of website development tool, and the ones that I included in the presentation, should have some kind of educational type articles that will help you kind of steer your strategy and how you want to go along with it. So I'll go on to the next question then. How much do consultants cost? So SEO consultants can range from $50 an hour. You can find some cheaper. I know there are resources too for SEO that are out of the country that can be cheaper. I've worked myself with a lot of SEO consultants throughout Europe, even Russia, that are fairly cheap to work with and still do a very good job. So, those can range from $30 an hour to $100 an hour. If you want to focus on that technical side of things, I think that will be more evergreen, and you can kind of do the content creation a little bit with a DIY yourself, and maybe use that consultant a little bit for some content that they might help you kind of identify as places and opportunities for content creation. So, do you need to have a website to sign up for Google My Business? So you need, let me double check that. I believe you need a website. You definitely need contact information and verifying your address. So that can be done through your website. I haven't seen a Google My Business done without a website. I also don't know if I would recommend doing that. It's quite easy to set up a website. I would recommend doing that as soon as possible, even if it's just driving to one page that has kind of a summary and basic information, just because Google too is not going to want to show your business if there isn't a way for them to click into it. There's a lot of this SEO, Google My Business stuff really is at the hands in Google. So anytime you kind of question it, just think of what can I do to show Google that I have more value. So that's driving more traffic to your site through their site, because if you think about it, Google wants people to click on their content on their website. They don't want people to do a search and then say, none of this works for me, and leave. So they're going to prioritize anything that is driving clicks to their pages and anything that is also connected through other links on the internet. So I have a website via GoDaddy and they have SEO optimization. Is it worth it? So I haven't used GoDaddy and their optimization tool. I think that these platforms provide some great material on learning how to do it. You can try it. I don't think it's outlandish to want to try it. I would just try to weigh that costs. And like I said, if you're looking to use GoDaddy's SEO optimization tool, I would look at how much that's going to cost you and also look at some other optimization tools and see what they range in terms of costs. GoDaddy, in essence, because they want your website to be successful, you would think that their SEO optimization is a solid tool, especially because they know, what's going into your website and the setup of it. So it's something I think is worth looking into, but I can't necessarily confirm that that is the best route for you to go on. But I love that question because I think that it brings up a greater question, which is taking the time to research and what other options are there out there. So kind of putting in that pros and cons list of your own and looking at GoDaddy's tools and what they use, and then doing some research on some other SEO optimization tools and maybe comparing that with a consultant. With GoDaddy, I would assume they would have some really great tracking for SEO optimization because they're driving to that site, which lives on their domain. So that might be another reason to go with GoDaddy and maybe start there. Again, with SEO, it takes a lot of time. So just be patient with it. You might make a change that you don't see increase anything for 3 months, but then you might see traffic start to really come through. So it takes time and patience, but it's definitely worth it if you can manage that time or afford some extra support. Great. Okay, so the next question I have here is, can you explain more about testing new keywords in the directories? Perhaps an example. Absolutely. So I mentioned that there are some preset specializations that you can choose. So I recommend starting with what you specialize in, and then maybe, on a new start of the month, switching that specialization to a different word that you were maybe considering. I know that a lot of those sites kind of only give you 3 or 4 specializations to choose from. So in that case, it's worth giving it some time to see how those perform and how many phone calls you're getting, how many contacts you're getting, and then switching it and seeing that next month over, okay, did anything change? Did I get less contacts or more contacts? So that might be switching from marriage counseling to anxiety as a specialization. In addition, I want to kind of pivot again and use that marriage counseling term that we saw come through the keyword planner. So we saw that marriage counseling was more popular than couples counseling. So if a directory had couples counseling that you could click on and be part of that pre-selected list, you might say, let me try to put in marriage counseling in that custom tool where you can add your own specializations with your own terms. Again, you might be able to find some other keywords that are even more outside of the realm of what you would expect to see as a psychologist for someone that's searching. So adding those keywords in your specializations will help. Not only in the keyword section where we're adding the specializations, but also testing out new descriptions. So I know a lot of the time they give you a space for description, summary, specializations. So maybe changing those up a little bit to add, maybe one line says marriage counseling, and then the next line you're talking about when we talk about couples counseling, so that you're including both of those terms in your search. or in your content, so that might trigger both of those terms, even though only one of them is listed in that preset keyword list. So that's just an example of some of the things you can do there. Okay, let's see. A benefit of telehealth is the specialized providers can reach more people across California. How do you advertise if you are interested in reaching people outside of San Diego? That's a great question. You can really, with a lot of these tools, target anyone you please. So like I said, paid search is really niche because you can really drill down for San Diego. However, you could also target the whole of California and the entirety of California, and that those ads will come up to anyone searching within the state. For SEO, you might want to position yourself as a California therapist and counselor and not talk too much about San Diego, and make sure that you're including California in some of your descriptive content. So talking about how you have worked in California, how you're licensed in California, and not focus so much on San Diego as a local region. And then directories too, you can also include wider ranges of places, so including California as a state might help you. One thing to keep in mind across a lot of these things is that when you expand the location that you're targeting, you're going to run into greater competition. There's just more people out there who are offering similar services. So keep that in mind when you're spending your time. You might want to view too, okay, maybe you think you've kind of tapped out the San Diego market, so let's expand to California, but then you might see it's too competitive for you. So making sure you're keeping up with that is important. And then on social too, you can really list yourself as a California specialist and not just focus on San Diego. Okay, so the next question I have here is it worth it to pay for Yelp upgrade? I don't believe so. Yelp can, they're going to try to get you to spend more money with them. I think Yelp is a good add-on for what you're already doing. And you should really maybe focus more on the directories because those are so specific to the industry you're in, whereas Yelp can kind of bring in some extra searches that might not be as relevant. You can always test. Again, as a digital marketer, I'm constantly testing new platforms. But make sure if you're doing that you're keeping things tight and what you want to spend your money on. And again, monitor the performance there. Don't just pay for Yelp because they offer you an option and kind of keep drilling it onto you that you can pay for that. Okay. Is there a way to get Google Analytic information on sites like you discussed, specifically Psychology Today? So Psychology Today is going to offer their own very short version of analytics where they will give you insights into the traffic you've seen over periods of time. It'll show you the date that those are contacted in. You are not going to get in-depth information from Psychology Today. This is because any kind of site is, well, one, they have a lot of regulations they need to follow in terms of what they can share with you since they are the owners of the website. They're not going to want to share demographic information that wouldn't, that's not even allowed. You can't kind of resell that information right now. So they're not going to be able to give you as many insights as Google Analytics. You could do some searches to try to see if there is any information or if they've kind of given any insights into Psychology Today. I'm not sure if they have any kind of contact information or customer service. It's pretty much kind of you do it on your own, but it might be worth it reaching out if there's something specific you are kind of curious on. Okay, I'm gonna jump down to, because I think I already answered the question about paying a website designer. Those are, again, going to be a little bit more upfront cost, but they can range from $20 an hour to $150 an hour, depending on what your needs are. So I'm going to jump down to the next question. Any suggestions for marketing that will involve minimal time spent on the computer, especially now that we are spending so much time in front of a monitor for telehealth? I get that. As someone who spends hours and hours digging in data, and my eyes hurt all the time, I totally get that. I would reach out to local organizations. I know, obviously, as you know, San Diego Psychologist Association is a great place to start. You know, seeing what kind of contacts they have, connecting there, finding local organizations that focus on mental health would be a place to start. There are great LinkedIn groups. That's online, I'm sorry. But you might be able to get in touch with some people who have more information around that. It's tough right now because not a lot is happening in terms of face-to-face type of interaction or events. But if there were any events moving forward, I would definitely recommend attending those, networking there. But at the moment, I can't think of too many face-to-face type of events that are happening. So the next question is, are there any concerns about a quick fill form on the web page that requests info from a potential patient? For example, with the info being provided over the internet on a website that is clearly for mental health. I'm just thinking about HIPAA, even for those who are potential patients. So as far as I know, and you know, again, double check me on this, there are no concerns for someone filling out that information because they are offering up their information and they are filling it out. You know, they are not being scraped of any of their data, their information. This is being actively decided that they are willing to give this information up. Again, that's why I said earlier, keep the information simple. People might start to feel weird about putting in their information when they're looking for a counselor, psychologist, therapist, if they feel like they need to provide more personal information. So try to keep that very simple, but yes, that information is being recorded by your website and is not being given out to other people. It is for your business's abilities to contact, which they have already opted in on. So definitely that's all right. I would make sure if they are sending you an email that you're not automatically adding them into any kind of email campaigns. If someone puts in their contact information in an email, you can email them one-on-one, but you cannot drop them in a database to just blast them with emails. So please make sure that you keep that one-on-one contact and to try not to, and do not share that information. So the next question I have here is, what concerns are there for mental health postings on Yelp? So, let me try to, I guess, decipher what you mean here. Is it just because it is a sensitive topic and people are unsure of what they're getting through Yelp? If so, I think that Yelp is still a fine place to have your business being on there because you are a legitimate business. If you were someone that wasn't providing great work and wasn't, a certified licensed psychologist, then there would be concerns of having a Yelp listing there. You wouldn't want to include any client information on any of these platforms. So for whoever asked that question, if you have any follow-ups on that, please feel free to let me know. I'm not sure if I answered that in the right way. Next question. Once we can circulate safely in groups and events again, what is your take on value of business cards? I think business cards are still great to have. It's a quick thing that people can just transfer over. QR codes have been big for a while of trying to scan that information. I think those can be a little bit gimmicky sometimes. It's still valuable to have someone's information right then and there, especially if we're thinking about, what the aftermath of COVID is. People, don't want to shake hands anymore. So a business card might be a more simple way to just kind of grab that information and put it in your pocket as opposed to pulling out a phone and getting contact information. It's a more quick, direct way of getting it. If you do that, include your website information, your social media information, of course, your phone number, your email, all of that important stuff, make sure to have on that, and make sure it matches what you're kind of showing on your website. If you do have kind of a brand or a color scheme, make sure that it's very cohesive so that the person really gets a sense for personalization. Okay, so the Yelp issue. We cannot respond to any reviews due to confidentiality. So that's why Yelp is an issue. I totally get that. Yelp is an issue for, not just psychologists, for anyone when they see negative reviews. And I can see how it would be very difficult and frustrating when you can't actually respond to the reviews. So, I'd have to kind of do some research on what that looks like in terms of trying to contact that person. You can't solicit reviews. You can't ask anyone to give you a review. You can't kind of contact them saying that. I'm
going to interrupt here real quick.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, sorry about that. That's a great thing we have people on who are from different licensing areas as well. So that's a great thing just to have people refer back to their own individual license, ethics codes, rules, regs, consult with somebody there. If they find a negative review online and they're not sure what they can do about that, I wouldn't in any way want you to guide somebody to respond or not respond or question or just go back to your own individual boards, double check to see what you're able to do for your own licenses. Sometimes it is absolutely nothing that we can do, and sometimes there's a way depending on what is said, but individual licenses require individual responses.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm seeing someone who dropped in here that Keely Combs, KeelyKolmes, has a great training on using Yelp as a therapist. So definitely utilize, other knowledge bases and confirm before taking any action on that, and kind of the best way to use those sources properly without, crossing any boundaries.
There was one more question, which I think I inadvertently dismissed as opposed to passing on as an open question. So my apologies for this. I'm going to kind of summarize it if I can remember it. It was essentially the directories listings that you had. Were they in any particular order in terms of preference or ones you'd recommend, or just ones that showed up like the Psychology Today, the Good Therapy, the Better Help? Were they just, this was an order of preference or recommendations, or were they just ones that you listed?
Yeah, I would say Psychology Today and Good Therapy are the ones that I've seen come up the most in a lot of organic search results. So what that's telling me is that they have a lot of content on their site and a lot of great counselors and therapists on there. So it's probably got the most well-known website and brand. So I would start with those and then work your way down. Again, if you're testing any of these, make sure to always track the performance. Psychology Today might work for some and not for others. Some of the lesser known ones too, you'll have less competition on there. So it's really trying to get that personal mix for yourself and making sure you're looking at all the right clues as to which ones are working for you.
All right, thank you. And then there's another question that kind of popped up in the chat, actually. Does anyone know that if we are listed on the San Diego Psychological website directory, would we come up in a search if somebody searched that way, if that was the only place we were listed?
They could be. I have not looked at the SDPA website and how that shows up on Google. What I would recommend you do is go on to, so if you open up a Chrome browser, you can open one up on incognito mode. I recommend doing this because if you do a search on your computer, it's going to take into account all the things you've done on the internet. So it might drop that listing first because you've already been to that page. So if you use an incognito window, that basically gives you kind of a clear view of what the search results look like. You can also use, within AdWords, Google Ads, you can use a preview tool that will show you what the search results page looks like based on the searches you do and the location that you're in. So then you can do a search of your name and see if it's coming up. I would assume it would, but then again, not all sites are crawled very much by Google, so it might not be high traffic enough to trigger on that first page. So go ahead and do what I recommended to see if you show up. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Alyssa. We've covered all the questions, and I think that we have had a wonderful presentation this evening. So I sure appreciate your time and covering the basics, and I am sure you'll get some questions asked of you in the next couple of days as people are trying to figure out what they'd like to do for themselves.
Great. Yeah, thank you all so much. Those were great questions. I know it was a lot of information. Again, there's so many great sources out there to dig into some more of these things. So, you know, try to find those. I added some great contacts in there too. If you want to run some questions by them, I'm sure they'd be happy to help. And thank you again.
All right. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.